Hare Krishna, Namaste, Chapter 18, Sloka 66, Part 55. Sarva-dharmān parityajya, ekaṁ śaraṇaṁ vraja, ahaṁ sarva-pāpebhyo, mokṣayiṣyāmi ma śucaḥ. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. In the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, when one takes initiation from a sadacharya within its lineage, there are certain commitments that are being made. One, to follow the regulatory principles after being initiated, and to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, 16 rounds. The reason behind the 4 regulatory principles, namely no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no meat eating, is based on the 4 pillars of dharma. It is said dharma stands on the 4 pillars: cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness, and compassion. If one engages in illicit relationship, that is illicit sexual relationship, the impacted pillar of dharma is cleanliness. If one engages in intoxication, taking drugs, smoking, drinking alcohol, then the pillar of austerity is impacted. When one is engaged in gambling, the 3rd pillar, truthfulness, is affected. And when one eats meat, then the pillar of compassion of dharma is affected. As a practicing devotee, cleanliness, austerity, truthfulness, and compassion are very important to be practiced. Eventually, for everyone, the goal is to constantly remember Krishna, the divine couple Radha and Krishna. If one gets engaged in intoxication, taking alcohol or any other forms of intoxication, one will not be able to remember Krishna. One will not be able to constantly meditate upon Krishna. Likewise, when one eats meat, even if one is not directly involved in killing the animal, they are for sure part of that process, which means their compassionate nature is lost. They do not look upon every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna. When other living entities are hurt or killed just for one's own enjoyment of taste, how can one please the Supreme Father of all living entities? Gambling means cheating. One should not be engaged in gambling. One may say life is a gamble. We are driving car. That is a gamble. Therefore, it is important to learn to distinguish between gambling that is reasonable or even unavoidable. That example is like driving cars, in which we risk our lives, and gambling that is characterized by unnecessary risk-taking, leading to dishonesty, addiction, and general degradation of character. The previous one, which is mentioned, like walking on the street, driving car, which certainly involves risk, cannot be actually categorized under gambling. Usually not, since it is simply our way of acting in this world. As conditioned being, we cannot see the future in a reliable way. We are forced or destined to guess about which course of action is good and which is not. Whereas there are gambling which involves known risk, but on an unconscious level many get associated with such risk like racetracks, casinos, etc. Therefore, gambling involves being untruthful in one form or the other. Therefore, this is against dharma, and more so ever, it displeases Krishna. And the fourth is illicit sexual relationship that falls outside of boundary of one's marriage, desiring to have relationship with other man's wife, or a woman desiring to have a relationship with other woman's husband, or anything which is outside of married life is considered to be illicit relationship. Procreation and sex are meant for procreation of Krishna consciousness child. As Krishna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, he is the sex life that is not contrary to religious principle. In Manu Dharma, it clearly states that celibacy is ideal, that is, restraining from sexual act is recommended, and that householder, a married person, should have sex only for procreation. For those who want to get engaged in such activity which is outside of procreation, Manu says that restriction should be applied. This restriction vary according to one's age and level of spiritual commitment. The householders who fall into the category of age 20 to 30 who are serious about spiritual life will limit their sex to once a month. If they are second class householders, they may have twice a month. If they are third class, they may have more than twice a month. But their advancement in spiritual life will be difficult. Those householders whose age fall into 30 to 40, the first class householders, have sex only once in 3 months, the second class twice in 3 months, the third class more than twice. The householders whose age fall into 40 to 50, first class householders, engage only once in 6 months, the second class twice in 6 months, and the third class more than twice. And lastly, Manu says, those who are older than 50, the householders, men should ideally take sannyasa, the renounced order of life, or live in celibacy with his wife. Manu clearly asserts that the above outline is merely a recommendation and that it is spiritually rewarding for those who attempt to follow it. He also acknowledges that people must make their own programs regarding their sex life. At the same time, Manu is adamant that without some form of regulation, mankind is reduced to the level of animals. The problem with sex, as with any form of pleasure, is that it becomes addictive, and one who begins with moderation can often fall victim to abuse. Therefore, sages throughout history have recommended abstinence. All these restrictions that we learn are simply to make one or enable one to experience the higher pleasure of spiritual love. His Grace Satyaraj Dasa, in his book called The Four Principles of Freedom, gives a beautiful example to convey the message: restriction is not necessarily opposed to freedom. In fact, certain restrictions allow one the opportunity to become truly free. The example that he gives is, say, someone is wanting to jump off the roof. When I see that, I shout out telling, "Don't jump off the roof." By restricting someone's jumping, I am helping that person to truly exercise his freedom. In fact, one's freedom of movement would come to an abrupt end if he were to ignore that simple bit of good advice. Similarly, if we ask someone not to drink poison, we could hardly consider that to be restricting, unless that is, one is determined to kill oneself. Yet many people in our present day and age are willing to drink poison in the name of freedom. Srimad Bhagavatam says the root cause of all our problems are these 4 sinful activities. Striyaha, Suna, Panam, Dyutam, that is illicit connection with the opposite sex, meat eating, intoxication of any kind, and gambling. A Ragasya Grantham called Sri Vachana Bhushanam by Pillai Lokacharya, and which was commented by a great sage Manavala Mamuni, as 3 sutrams, Sutram 455, 456 and 457, which nicely addresses the reasons why one should not be engaged in these pleasures, specifically emphasizing the dangers of illicit sex. The principle of that can be extended to meat eating, gambling, and intoxication as well. There are 2 terms which we need to know: Vishiddha Bhogam and Nishiddha Bhogam. Vishiddha Bhogam is that which is allowed as per the scriptures. By enjoying that, one does not acquire sin and go to hell, and one is not condemned or criticized by the society. That is Vishiddha Bhogam. For example, the union between legally married husband and wife is allowed as per the scripture. Nishiddha Bhogam is the union between a man and a woman outside of marriage, which is not allowed in the scripture, and also the society doesn't appreciate it. Vishiddha Bhogam is not like Nishiddha Bhogam. It is not against scripture. It is allowed based on Vishishta Vesha, that is, based on one's varnashrama dharma. It allows it, like how we saw as per the Manu Dharma, based on the age and level of spiritual maturity. It is not considered wrong in others' viewpoint as well. The world thinks that it is husband and wife who are talking together, spending time together, etc. Therefore, nothing wrong in such activities. By doing so, the husband or wife doesn't go to hell for engaging in their relationship. Whereas one man spending time with other man's wife, or one woman spending time with other woman's husband, is considered sinful, and one will go to hell to suffer there, and that is seen abominable in the eyes of the cultured people. So one more time, Vishiddha Bhogam and Nishiddha Bhogam. Vishiddha Bhogam is allowed as per the scripture. It is not seen as a sinful act by the society, by the cultured people. Example is the union between married couple, that is, between husband and wife. One important point to note here is marriage means between a man and a woman. Shastras doesn't allow marriage between same gender. We'll see the reason why as we go further into this topic. Pillai Lokacharya, who is an Aishtika Brahmachari, takes this topic to the next level, stating that even Vishiddha Bhogam, which is allowed by the scriptures, should not be performed. And there are 4 reasons why even that is not allowed. Those 4 reasons are Swarupa Viruddham, Vedanta Viruddham, Sishta Darhitam, and prapya pratibandham. Swarupa viruddham means it is against the essential nature of Jivatma. The Jivatma is meant for enjoying the Supreme Lord. The Jivatma is for the enjoyment of the Lord. Besides the Lord, if I start enjoying something else, then it is against my essential nature, Swarupam. That means I am trying to derive pleasure from something else other than Krishna. But the essential nature of Jivatma is not to enjoy anything else other than Krishna. That is said to be ananya bhoktrutvam. Anya bhoktrutva means trying to get pleasure from other objects. Ananya bhoktrutva means having no other pleasure other than Krishna. The second reason is Vedanta viruddham. It is against the Vedanta, the scriptures. Krishna in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 54th Sloka, said Bhaktya tu ananya sakyaha ahameva vidho Arjuna, that one should have unalloyed love, one and only to Krishna, not to anything else, not to anyone else. Only by undivided love, bhakti, one can understand Krishna. Also there is another statement which says Sattva Suddho Dhruva Smritihi. Ahara Suddho Sattva Suddhihi. Sattva Suddho Dhruva Smritihi. Smriti Lambe Sarva Grantinam Vipra Mokshaha. Dhruva Smritir. One get uninterrupted focus, thoughts, able to meditate upon the Lord. Only then one will be able to attain moksha. Taila dharavat avichinna smiti santana rupam. One's dhyana upon the Lord is like a oil pouring from a container which doesn't splatter, meaning one's thought is uninterrupted. If it's interrupted, then it is not taila dharavat. It cannot be sattva suddho dhruva smritir. When one engages in the union with one's spouse, that means there is an interruption of thought on the Lord for the duration, for those seconds. Therefore, it is Vedanta viruddham. The first one is Swarupa viruddham because it is against the essential nature of Jivatma, which is meant to enjoy or enjoyed by the Lord. Vedanta viruddham, that is, the scriptures are against to such acts when it comes to pure unalloyed bhakti. The third one is Sishta Darhitam. The Acharya, Guru, is displeased by such acts. The great sages feel disgusted even thinking of such an act. And lastly, Prapya Pratibandham. It binds one by not being released to attain the Supreme Lord. So those are the four reasons mentioned that even it is not allowed within married life for sensual pleasure. Those who are spiritually very inclined, having strong desire, but unable to come up with certain habits due to previous karma vasanas, can sincerely approach a senior Vaishnava or one's own Guru to help them gradually progress in Krishna consciousness by overcoming these urges. At any cost, one should not stop one's chanting, one's devotional engagement, services, and their association with devotees. One may ask a question, what if one unites with one's wife, not for sensual enjoyment, but for the dharma as a grahastha? Two reasons. One is, unless one has offspring, one will not pay their debt to rishis, pitrus, and devatas. One becomes indebted to rishis, pitru, and devas if one does not have a son. Therefore, one must have a child. If one must have a child, then one must be married and get engaged in vishaya sukham, in the sensual pleasure. That's the only way by which one can pay their debts to Pitrus. It is said, when a son is born, the Pitrus becomes joyful. The second reason, that even if one is not interested in sensual enjoyment, but as a dharma, one can perform that, because the Shastra says, after the menstrual period, that is after 3 days of woman's period time, husband must unite with his wife. If he fails to do so, then it is equal to committing the sin of abortion, bhrunahastya. So the argument is, for these two reasons, or one of these reasons, can one be engaged in such relationship. If we do that, there is a second problem, that is ananya upayatvam will get impacted. Upaya means the means to attain the Lord. The essential nature of the self is to completely be dependent on the Lord alone as the means to attain Him. When we depend ourselves on these reasons, wanting to have offspring to pay their debt to Pitrus, and wanting to unite with one's wife to avoid the sin of abortion, are not the upaya, means to attain the Lord. So, for those who have given up the mentality of sensual pleasure, but wanting to have children to fulfill the debt to the Pitrus, for that reason, if he engages as an act of dharma, it is said not even necessary. Why? Because for the surrendered soul, he has no debts to anything for that matter, not to rishis, Pitrus, devas, none of them. Bhagavatam states this very clearly. Deva rishi bhutapta nirnam pratranam na kinkaro nayam rinecha rajan sarvatmanaya śaraṇaṁ śaranyam kato mukundam parihritya kartam. Anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation, giving up all kinds of obligation, and has taken up the path in all sincereness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigods, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, or forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by performing devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should not be worried about their obligation. One should not be worried about getting sin of not uniting with one's wife on the 3rd day after her menstrual period. And moreover, it is against the Sloka that we are studying. Sarva-dharmān parityajya. Krishna has told, give up, abandon all varieties of religion. Just surrender unto me. If one sticks on to that dharma of having offspring to take care of them while living or after dead, or to take care of the obligation towards the forefathers, then one is not following the sarva-dharmān sloka. Alavandar, Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint, says, Edavadi mama chitta Krishna padharavinde navanavara dhamne udyatarantum asit tad avati badanari sangame smaryamani bhavati mukha vikhara sushtu nistivanam cha. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought. Srila Prabhupada also states, whether it is licit or illicit, sex is full of dangers whether one has a license for sex through marriage or not, there is great trouble. He also says in one of his purport that generally a man should not have sexual relationship with any woman other than his wife. According to Vedic principles, the wife of another man is considered one's mother, and sexual relations are strictly forbidden with one's mother, sister, and daughter. If one indulges in illicit sexual relations with another man's wife, that activity is considered identical with having sex with one's mother. This act is most sinful. The same principle holds for woman also. If she enjoys sex with a man other than her husband, the act is tantamount to having sexual relations with her father or son. Illicit sex life is always forbidden, and any man or woman who indulges in it is punished in the manner described in this verse. What Prabhupada says is verse 20 in chapter 26, canto 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam. The verse says that such people will be thrown into a hell known as Tapta Surmi. There, such men and women are beaten with whips. The man is forced to embrace a red-hot iron form of a woman, and the woman is forced to embrace a similar form of a man. Such is the punishment for illicit sex. And the next verse in Srimad Bhagavatam says that when a person indulges in sex indiscriminately, even with animals, is taken after death to the hell known as Vajrakantaka Shalmali. In this hell there is a silk cotton tree full of thorns as strong as thunderbolts. The agents of Yamaraj hang the sinful man on the tree and pull him down forcefully so that the thorns very severely tear his body. Prabhupada explains in his purport on this verse that the sexual urge is so strong that sometimes a man indulges in sexual relations with a cow, or a woman indulges in sexual relations with a dog. Such men and women are put into this hell known as Vajrakantaka Shalmali. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement forbids illicit sex. Srila Prabhupada further says in the same purport, sometimes people disbelieve these descriptions of hell, but whether one believes or not, everything must be carried out by the laws of nature, which no one can avoid. So, what we learned is that sex, whether it is licit or illicit, needs to be considered carefully. For sure, illicit should be avoided completely, which is outside of marriage. If it is licit, and that is for the procreation of children, for the purpose of producing good progeny, a Krishna conscious child, then with the blessings of Acharya and Vaishnavas, the couple can unite. Even that is done on selected days only, and based on the age, as we already discussed earlier. One can unite with his wife after 96 hours of menstrual cycle. The days like Ekadasi, Trayodasi, days of fasting, Vrata, full moon day, that is Purnima, new moon day, that is Amavasya, Ashtami Tithi, that is 8th day, Chaturdasi, that is 14th Tithi day of the Vedic calendar, should be avoided. Also, when either spouse is weak or sick, one should not unite. One should also avoid the appearance and disappearance days of Acharyas, and certainly not during any Sanatana festival days. One should also avoid either one of their birthdays, parents and in-laws tithi, the day that they left the body. Also, one should not unite during sandhyas. As soon as the wife becomes pregnant, there is no question of any more sex life. One must wait at least 6 months after childbirth to unite again. The best time is after 9 p.m. and before 12 a.m. midnight. The place where the husband and wife unite must be prepared to be clean and pleasant in one's home, a comfortable place. Never to unite in the temple, crematoriums, ashrams, house of another Vaishnava, under sacred tree, in goshalas, in the forest, or in water. The process to unite, to have a devoted child, is technically called as garbhadhana samskara, if it is followed as recommended in the scriptures. On that day, the wife should not leave home. In ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada recommends that both husband and wife chant at least 50 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra before performing the Garbhadhana Samskara. So, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. When one gets engaged in any of these activities, it is against one's essential nature of ananya bhoktritvam and ananya upayatvam. That means one tries to enjoy something other than Krishna. One tries to depend on something other than Krishna. Therefore, these 4 sinful activities must be stopped for one's spiritual progress in Krishna consciousness. As we grow spiritually, we have to become more detached from the things of this world. And that detachment must be natural, not artificial. It comes by one's practices, spiritual practices, by the blessings of Guru and Krishna. It is easy to be detached with one's spouse if the spouse is not favorable, not cooperative, not good looking, doesn't have good nature, always fights, find faults, complains, demands, etc. Likewise, it is easy to be detached with one's child, if the children are disobedient, misbehaved, disrespectful, etc. But what is expected is to be even detached with those spouse who is favorable, cooperative, good looking, good in nature, never complains, never demands, never fights, etc. And be detached even with children who are obedient, well behaved, respectful, and so forth. Because all the relationship that we have currently is related to body, sharira sambandha. We gained all this relationship because of this body. None of them are related to Atma. One gets married based on the body. One gets children based on the body. One gets all relatives and friends based on the body. Nothing to do with the Atma. Of course, without Atma being present in the body, none of this relationship could happen or exist. But it's all related to Sharira. But when one surrenders to Krishna in the process that's been mentioned so far, then one re-establish that relationship, the lost relationship with Atma to Paramatma. This process of surrender is spiritually also known as Atma Vivaha, marriage of Atma, a Jivatma getting married to Paramatma. In our next session, we will learn more about Atma Vivaha. Thank you. Hare Krishna.